welcome to the next edition of Spoilercast. We are going to be talking about the Fallout series. This will be a complete spoiler of this wonderful show, 8 episodes. And right away, I want to start off with introducing my co-host. It is going to be Mr. Danny Ramirez. How are you doing?
Martinez?
Martinez! Lord, I just thought of any Spanish name. Hello, Mr. Martinez.
What's up, fellow ghouls?
Fellow ghouls and rules or whatever. Wastelanders. See, I'm catching on. First off, this was an impeccable, well, let's just go into our thoughts with it. But this was a Prime Video series that just aired, just finished up. It was all in one big swoop. They dropped all 8 episodes at the same time. This is directed by Jonathan Nolan, who is the brother of the Christopher Nolan, which, by the way, him and Christopher collaborated on. They bounced ideas off each other. So right away off the bat, I want to just go in with the generalized, overalized thoughts of what did you think of the show?
I thought it was amazing. Every video game adaptation I ever see, I am always cautiously optimistic and most of the time disappointed. But this one was really, really good. I'm really happy with it. I remember reading one of the tweets the director had, and he had mentioned, he was saying that he was trying to make this adaptation not just for the fans. He's not trying to make the adaptation for the fans. He's trying to make it for himself. What he got out of playing those Fallout games, and it shows.
I completely agree with that. I think this was absolutely wonderful. I played Fallout when it kind of first came, maybe like a year or so after the first game, and I couldn't stand it. I got very frustrated. I usually couldn't get out the vault. I'm terrible when it comes to games like that. This is why I don't game anymore. But I will say watching other people play it brought me joy. And to see this adaptation, I'm not gonna lie, I was very like, oh, I don't want that. Because remember, we have a lot of video game adaptations that we had before. We have the whole Sonic, and even though Sonic and stuff worked, Tomb Raider, it just felt like they was just doing it for the sake of doing it. We have Halo. Does anyone even watch Halo? I don't know.
People watch Halo. I don't know why, but it's an awful adaptation of the game.
He took his mask off, and he's just running around without his little helmet.
They did a whole lot more.
It's to humanize the character. Yeah. I forgot I interviewed the people for that. It's to humanize them. But no, I didn't like that at all. And it's nothing like the video games, as you were saying. But to get back to this, I think that it was a wonderful adaptation where there was a lot for both non-fans and fan fans. They had a lot of Easter eggs in it. I thought it was just beautifully adapted. And Jonathan Nolan, you can't really lose out there. So we're kind of going to just dive into this. Let's just start off with the journey. You know, it kicks off with this simple birthday party where we have this guy and his daughter. They're at the birthday party. He's with a horse. He's taking photos with the kids. And we learned that he used to be an actor. His name is Cooper. And that he used to be an actor. And he seems to be really uncomfortable about his past. Maybe it's his acting and what happened to him in his career. We don't really know the backstory yet. But long story short, we're at this birthday party. Everyone's enjoying themselves. There are 2 men there who, of course, look at him a little disparagingly, like, oh my God, his belly fell off. Then we just see, he's uncomfortable at the party, but his daughter's enjoying it. He wants to go and get cake. We have this whole thing where they're talking about the bombs on TV, the nuclear war. And it seems like the thing that was really interesting, there was a weather reporter who was like, look, I don't even know why I'm even talking about this. We might all be dead next week. And I was like, oh, you don't see that kind of honesty. But that was something that really stood out. And then we had a conversation about the bomb. And if you stick your finger out, which is the Pit Boy stance, if it's smaller than your thumb, run. If it's bigger than your thumb, you're done. Don't go anywhere. Don't bother. And we soon, sadly, see that there is a bomb, a nuclear bomb that ends up being exploded. People are running for the hills. And then we pull out and we discover, amidst the chaos, there are 4 bombs that are dropped. So, what did you think of just that opening alone?
I think the opening scene has to be put in as like one of the greats of just like pilot episodes to any TV show. Like one of my favorites was like Lost, just as an example, like just how epic and how like creative it was visually, how everything's going on, and just the catastrophe of it all. I think it was like really well done, and the color, like the beautiful colors of it all, like it does really good.
I completely agree. It was very impactful. It was a wonderful opening. You thought you was getting something nice, 1950s, idyllic. I was like, oh look, there's black people. So it was like a really nice, and then it just became really haunting, and it slowly climbed into it being haunting because you had the weatherman going off. You knew there was something with a war. They was kind of talking about it, but they was like, let's put on a brave face. We got our kids. It's a birthday party. So we knew that there was something in the background, and then when we finally saw, like, oh, it's a bomb. But it really like took me aback by seeing 4 dropped, and I was in different locations, and I was like, oh, is this going to start a chain reaction? I immediately thought of Oppenheimer when it was like, oh, it's a chain reaction that we can't stop. Because I was like, you're dropping too many bombs. What's going to happen here? That's a lot of radiation. What happens if you end up taking out your own self? I was like, the whole world's going to die. But we didn't get to that. So just for that alone, it was really powerful and meaningful to me. And then we kind of jump into the overall story where we follow, was it 3 characters? And then we branch off to little other characters as well. But we're following Lucy McLean, who is a daughter of Hank McLean, who they're in a vault. And the year is 219 years later from the bombs dropping. They're in a vault. It's an idyllic vault. You see this kind of happiness to them, and they're talking about one day they're going to go back into the surface. But right now, they're here, but everything seems really positive. So that's kind of that one storyline. She loves her father. The father loves her. We're a family. This whole vault is a family. That was great. Then we have Maximus, which kind of took me by surprise. He is part of the Brotherhood, or he really wants to belong to the Brotherhood, if I'm correct. And he's just someone who is just trying to prove to other people that he can be someone. But instead, we get an opening scene of him getting his behind beat by a bunch of kids. Not kids, young. I'm not sure what anyone's ages are, what their ages are, but I would say in their 20s.
I would assume so. I mean, lore-wise, I know the Brotherhood usually like adopts. They take on kids as like young as 12 years old. But I don't think they're 12. But yeah, they're still fairly young. I would think that they're early 20s to like teen years.
Right. So we see him getting his behind beat, and we see that he doesn't really fit in. And this is when we're on the surface, which kind of took me aback because I'm like, what about the radiation? 219 years, yes, but y'all dropped 4 bombs. But apparently there's people are breathing and living on that wasteland. And I liked automatically the vast difference when it came to the environment. So you have the vaults in that kind of stale, fake color, but then you have your outside, and it's interesting. It feels like it's more dead than the vault because you have this open wasteland, sand, nothing's growing. The sun, even though it's out, it's not like blue clouds, and you know what I mean? The skies are blue, and it's just everything seems to have this haze, this kind of darkened radiation haze. So I liked that. And then we end up following, we don't get to the ghoul yet. We end up following, sorry, help me out here. Is it Bar? No, it was the ghoul. It was the ghoul. We're introduced to
in the cemetery.
Yes. So we're introduced to the ghoul, who is literally more like a very functional zombie. He has all of his senses. He's a jokester. He's very quick. He's a human who's lost all of his skin, essentially. Has no nose. And I thought that this was the most interesting character, not even just for the looks, but his charisma and his sass. And my immediate thought was, I don't understand. This is when I started texting you, because I'm like, I don't understand. He's alive, and it's been 219 years, He's alive after getting bombed. I don't get this.
It's video game logic. That's all you gonna like really accept it as is video game logic.
Because I'm like, let me start using science, and I realized you can't use science. It's just like nothing makes sense. How is he still alive? Why is he not a zombie? Why does he looks really well maintained technically? I know he was buried, but that can't be the only thing that saved him. And I don't really think they did a great explanation with the chain of ghouls. I know that you have to have the vials in order to slow down the process of turning into a zombie ghoul.
I think I can't remember the term. It was like Ravager or
right,
Ravenous Ghoul or something like that in the games. I can't remember, but like yeah, they lose their minds afterwards, and they game wise, and I would assume it's the show wise, it's they still don't age. They still pretty much look exactly the same, even if they go crazy. The only time they start to deteriorate is when they start to go hungry.
All right. Which in order they do cannibalism.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was like, remember, they do cannibalism instead. So I was just like, oh, we're just throwing everything at this. Okay, video game logic. But overall, what did you think when they introduced the 3 characters? What kind of stood out to you the most?
Oh man, the Brotherhood guy. What's his name? Shoot, Maximus. So Maximus bugged me the most, and not in a bad way. I think he's kind of meant to bug to get under your skin a little bit because he's very immature. He's very inexperienced. He's not very intelligent because he was raised in the Brotherhood pretty much just to do whatever they need to do and stuff. So like throughout that, even just the first episode, he just looks lost. He looks like completely like he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's thinking, and it's just like I was really bothered by that. But then I eventually it warmed up to me, like his character, and especially after he gets the power suit. And he really means well. He really means like he wants to be a heroic figure of some kind. With Lucy, I love her character. It was played very well because she's supposed to be the naive one, and it was done very well. The way she speaks, how well spoken she is, how innocent she sounds, how upbeat and positive she is, regardless of what's thrown at her. It was hilarious to watch. So it's funny that her character never wavers for the most part. And then for the ghoul was the badass. The ghoul was every time you see the ghoul, it's almost like the feeling of the show turns into a Western, like a cowboy movie. So that's how I always felt whenever the ghoul showed up, and that was always really cool.
I like that. I like that the fact he never really changed his ways. Because even though this is what also bothered me, we're in the future, but it's still kind of set in a 1950s atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So that spaghetti Western that he was an actor in those Western films, and he never lost that. And the Wasteland itself is a Western with all of its characters of the bad guy and the sheriff and the different laws and the laws that are unspoken. So I really like, and even him with the bull, the rope, catching people. This was like a Western feel through and through. And then you had when you went into the vault, clearly it was something completely different. This was more like a sterilized modern society, even though again the 1950s, which still video game logic. But it works in that way because for me, you would think of, if you're not Black, that kind of innocent time, everyone, 2-parent household, everyone comes home from work at the same time. Leave it to Beaver is what our grandparents would say. That simple life, everyone's happy, 2-parent household with the dog, the fence. So it's kind of that perfected lifestyle, but you see where they're living at, you could argue is absolute hell, where it's like you have technically a paranoid society, That's like we can't go to the surface, understandably. But then we'll get into what was really going on with that. But you have a society that you can view as being a hierarchy. We're better than, in a way. And then you have the wasteland, which is a complete chaotic survive if you can. But it's all supposed to be embraced in this 1950s atmosphere. So I really liked how they played with the different kind of look, not only just the look, but also the feel of the show. Yeah. So for me, Maximus, for some strange reason, I did not trust him. He seemed to be completely out of place, which was the point. But to me, he seemed like he was a 75-year-old man trying to play this young adult role. It just wasn't working for me. I still don't trust him when it comes to season 2. Because when that thing with that power, it's like, oh, I don't know.
I think that power is going to go to his head. I think that's the point.
I think that's the point too, and we saw some of that. Remember when he basically pretends to be the knight, and we end up seeing that the kid who ended up beating him up in the very beginning, he ends up basically like what do you call that? Hazing. He hazes him.
Yeah.
Go chop that tree for an apple.
Just like the previous night was doing to him in the first episode.
Mm-hmm. And it's like he justified it, but at the same time, wasn't necessary. So that was interesting. And then, the girl is that typical naive. We kind of expect. What's weird is everyone has a stereotypical role, but they play it unstereotypically, which really worked for me. So kind of just going into everyone's story and how they end up emerging is we do know that Lucy, they end up being rated. They think it's going to be Vault 32. Right? Is it 32 or 31? I think it's 31. So
31 is where they're at.
Where they're at? No, they're 33.
Sorry, 33. Sorry, 31 is the secret one.
So it's 32.
Yeah. Oh, marrying someone from 32. Yes.
So they think that so the thing is you get married, you populate, so therefore the whole speech is so that the next generation will one day be able to go to the surface. You just basically just reproduction for the next generation. That's how you survive. So 32 comes in, hey, we're gonna get married. It's already arranged, and you still soon discover this is not right. And what I did not expect was the sheer violence that would ensue behind this. It was glorious and beautiful, and I was like, oh my God, at every moment. And we end up discovering that they kill basically almost half of 33, the occupants of 33, almost basically like 33. Leslie Uggams, who I love, she's in this. She plays one of the overseers. But so they're halfway destroyed, and as a result of this, it ends up being they kidnap her father, where it's like, oh, you really don't know what he's really like. And you're like, oh, what does that mean? So her goal is to get her father back. And the only way to get him back is by going to the wasteland, which, of course, people protest, and she does it anyway. She sneaks out. So that is her main goal as to why she is now at the surface. We have Maximus, who ended up, how did it go? He ended up stealing the identity of a knight who was in that big robot. And he is played by Michael Rappaport, who was like, yes. And
that was completely unexpected.
That was unexpected, but necessary. So I'm like, okay, cool. So he ends up replacing him and assumes his identity. And now his goal is to basically, he ends up getting a squire, which is one of the guys who abused him when we saw at the very beginning. He gets a squire, and their mission is to basically find this person. They don't know who the person is, and bring them back to the Brotherhood. And then we have the ghoul, who is also discovers this mission, this bounty for bringing this guy back to, what would it be? It would be not the Brotherhood, but a person named Moldova.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. So they all seem to have these separate missions, but it ends up being they're looking for the exact same person, and the person that they're looking for is a scientist named Wigzel, who somehow is doing this experiment. He steals something and injects it in his neck that we don't know, that is very important, and he escapes from his facility and takes his dog with him, and his goal is to go to Moldova, Moldavia as well. So that's how everyone ends up on this kind of complete path, and it ends up being about, for the next remaining episodes, is them trying to find their respective people. So what I wanted to kind of know from you is, what did you think about the interactions and the journeys that they end up going on?
One thing that stood out to me is that there was a lot of randomness that was going on, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but there's a lot of randomness going on throughout their entire journey, for their main focus. And the reason why I say it was a good thing is because it reminds me again of someone playing Fallout. The game can be so huge that you can get distracted and end up doing a lot of other side missions that you just run into. So that kind of what it made me feel like. It's just like, oh, we got this story mission we got to go to. Let's go and do it. Oh, what's that over there? And then you wander off, and then you end up getting attacked by something, and then you end up talking to another person, and then you end up connecting to another thing, and then you go to another town. It's just all connect. It's just like, it's side mission after side mission after side mission. And I thought that was really funny that they did that. And yet it still allowed for a lot of character development with everybody. And of course it connected with everybody. So it still worked out. So I had a lot of fun with that.
I really enjoyed that as well. It did feel like a bunch of side quests, but it never felt like they were just running off and doing their own little thing and wasting time. I felt that this was still very well constructed. So I did love that part about it. And I love the interactions with the different characters that we meet along the way. We don't stay with them because, again, we're going on a quest. We may help them along the way or do something else, but we're still going on a quest. One of the things that I did love was how Lucy's naivety, how she was so trusting with everything, and you slowly see her hardening up because she has to survive. And she starts doing things that she wouldn't normally do. And one of the big shockers is it's not deserted as she thinks it is. There's people out there, they're, have their own system and their own way of survival. And we do see her kind of slowly understand, like, hey, some things that I was taught wasn't right. And we see that development in what's going on with her. But her goal is still to find her father. So she's very purpose driven, even though, it's a lot of things. My thing was like, wouldn't she die instantly? Because there's no radiation down at the vaults, and now she's up there. How long will she last? We did see her get radiation sickness, but I was like, I'm applying logic. I'm like, I just saw Oppenheimer, so she's supposed to be dead by like the end of the season, right? She's going to get the cancer.
Nope.
But
just a little bit of IV for a couple minutes, and you're good.
Just a little bit of IV. So I did like that, and I did like how everyone's kind of just finding their way, and it was their own little journeys that they went on. And of course, again, the ghoul was just the most interesting. What also kind of stood out for me, I don't know if it was for you, was not just the environment, but then we had the different animals or creatures, monsters that they kind of met along the way there, which ended up discovering that those were created. I thought it was like, oh, they're from creatures because somehow they survived the nuclear, not just one, but 4 nuclear blasts. And that's why they look that way.
Mm-hmm.
But what did you think of the interactions? There was like a fish. There were some big roaches. A lot of things.
So pretty much all of them that you see are in the game as well. And there's that video game logic that they pretty much, because of the radiation, they got big or they got deformed or whatever. There is one design that they changed called the Gulper. It looks very
Than
different.
fish.
The big pink thing in the fish thing in the show doesn't look like that in the video game, which is not a big deal. I think they actually creeped it out even more so. I think they did a really good job with it. They did the rad roaches. The rad roaches are like the epitome of just what the easiest enemies that you fight in the game. Those rad roaches, just giant cockroaches. Which I guess that's what'll happen when they survive during our apocalypse or something. I don't know.
We're the only original.
You got the I think it was like the Yao Guai, I think it was called, which is like that giant bear looking thing that killed the Brotherhood of Steel Knight there. You got the super mutant, which they hinted at but they didn't show. There was a moment where the professor guy, Siggy, he was walking out and you see them pushing a gurney and you can see a hand fall out and it's like a big meaty green hand, and I think that was the hint of what the super mutant was. Those are genetically engineered, so those are the ones that were created by the scientists. Then you got my favorite, of course, was the last episode, not to jump between episodes and stuff, but they teased the Death Claw, which is probably one of the most ferocious, strongest, pain in the ass monsters in the game. You see the skull just before the credits roll, pretty much. So those are all cool Easter eggs.
So we have a lot to look forward to in season 2. Superhumans and Death Claws. And more roaches.
And more roaches.
So we can like jump around. There's nothing wrong with that. I really wanted to bring up kind of the big plot twists and the big revelations of everything. What I really love is how they went back and forth in terms of timelines. So we get to see a lot of the previous world of why it's established, why it looks like this now, through Cooper, who was the ghoul, and how he was married to Barb. He had that, like, again, that wonderful daughter that we saw at the very beginning that I was like, she's dead too. Basically, we've seen that they worked for Voltec, and we've seen that not only did he work for him, he was in a way a spokesperson. And we don't really understand the anger that he has in the present towards not just the Voltec, but he takes out his gun and he shoots the pit boy. He's like doing this, and I'm like, oh, it's his thumb, and maybe he's remembering his daughter. But it ends up being much deeper than that. He is the person that they kind of use as the advertisement. He is that advertisement of the Pit Boy and the Voltex. And it was very simple. Hey, would you like to come in a way, be our spokesperson? And you saw him doing these photo shoots. You saw him doing these commercials. It didn't really feel right with him. And it kind of felt like, to me, it was a job that you take when you need money. And his wife got him the job because she works for the company of Voltec. She is a scientist, and she's one of the head people there and engineers. And we get to see that because of her, it is literally because of her, is why we get today's universe. And we end up discovering that, they call it communism. See, he has something to say too. So we end up learning that the whole thing is she works for this company. They sell vaults, the same vaults that we've seen. But the problem is during that time, they're talking about war, but there seems to be a peace negotiation. It's supposed to be a war between America and China. And there seems to be a peace negotiation happening. Long story short, his wife, is essentially one of the people who put into motion the entire nuclear attack. They work for a vault company, and the profits are down because, there is China and America may actually be negotiating peace. And during the time of peace, you can't sell vaults as meant for a nuclear war or war and kind of fallout, because we're at peace. You don't need them. You don't need them anymore. So essentially, she decides to manufacture this war, and not, China's going to bomb us. We're going to bomb ourselves. And therefore, we're going to be able to sell more units that way. From my understanding, unless there was a loophole that I completely, because I was like, how are you going to sell more votes if, the bombs drop and they don't have a time, but they've already been set into place. And the people have already purchased their vote. And therefore, those are the people who are going to be okay. And what's really interesting is it's a conversation between being better than, because remember, her goal was, we're going to get a vote, but it's going to be better. Our vote is going to be better than the other ones. So it makes me wonder what's going on in these other votes, because we only seeing 33. Where's 1 through 33?
You have
That's
no
what I'm
idea.
like. Well,
Oof. There's over 200 votes in the Fallout.
200.
Yeah, in the Fallout lore. So there are crazy. I don't want to get into the rabbit hole of it, but like there are some crazy stories of what happened in some of the vaults.
Oh my. Well, I know that they allowed you to do your own experiments in the vaults in terms of, especially when it comes to behavior. What happens if we overcrowd it on purpose? It's a survival of the fittest, of who's going to actually make it. Also, the overseers and how does that work? And that ends up bleeding into every overseer that 33 had came from 31, came from 33. No, came from 32. 32, right? Came from 32.
The female overseer?
All of the overseer year after year after year, every time they vote, ends up being a transfer.
Yeah,
and that
they
was
started at 31 and then 32, yes.
And that's for a meaning that we'll get into. But it was really interesting how there were so many themes that were broke down in just this plot twist alone, where it was like manufacturing a war or manufacturing anything fake in order to create outrage so that corporates end up winning. And we've seen that so many times in just the regular world sense. You can look back and they're going to take away your guns. You better get a gun. That ends up being more profit for the gun company. You look at how oil is and anything else kind of that's corporate in America, they create, you can argue a hysteria in order to sell more.
They create the supply and demand.
Right. So we see that Cooper is the one that has humanity, and he's really kind of disgusted by what he discovers. And the fact that he ends up being the spokesperson really outrages him because he's discovering what he's an actual spokesperson for. And by eavesdropping and listening into his conversation, what I really wish is that we got the fallout of him confronting his wife. But in the midst of this whole situation, we end up learning that basically everyone knows each other in a sense. And that Hank, who was, great father of Lucy and everything else, he was a part of that whole kind of catastrophe. And him just, I was just a part of the vault. I was born and raised in one. That whole facade, everything is a lie. And we do end up finding there's this plot twist of the face that was supposed to be good and whole and pure is actually pure evil. Where not only he helped to manufacture a war, but he also, the story is that his family was living down there and his wife discovered that someone was siphoning the water supply that they had in their vault. She went to investigate and she went out and she left with her children and they discovered the wasteland, which did not look how it looked today. There's a part of the wasteland where it was shady, I want to say Shady Farms, and I know that's a thing with the food. That's not Shady Farms. It was Shady something. But they ended up discovering that they had life, they had plants, they had food, it was a civilization, they had trains. It looked like something out of San Francisco in a way. And he discovered the anger because his wife didn't want anything to kind of do with him and she refused to come back. So he took the kids and as a, revenge, he burnt down the whole area. So it's just this war after war and bombs and fires, and everything was manufactured and nothing was like, oh, it's the other enemy. The enemy ended up being us, ended up being them in that way. So I really loved kind of that first set of the plot twist. So what did you think about that plot twist? Because there was a lot of things that went on there.
I was expecting something I was expecting that he knew something, not that he was actually involved with it 200 plus years ago. Um, Again, video game logic. You know, he pretty much froze himself up until a point, and then he implemented himself in the vault and became an overseer, and then there's history and all that stuff. But I really liked the plot twist that he's like the evil villain. I even appreciated even more that there wasn't any um they didn't finish him off. He actually ran off. So he got away, which is like, oh, I'll get you next time. So like they have more motivation to chase after him and get more answers and stuff like that. I also appreciate that there was somewhat of a utopia. That's actually kind of another Easter egg that they did. The reason being is that some of the vaults have a particular item. I can't remember what the item is called, but they have a machine that when the vault feels like that they have adapted enough and they're ready to go out into the surface to kind of like repopulate the world and create new life again, grass and civilization and all this stuff. There's a machine that they can use, and it actually causes a terraform effect. So they can terraform the earth and create new plant life, wildlife, all that stuff, and they could rebuild. So my guess is that that's an Easter egg to one of the vaults had possibly gotten out early, and they tried to start life all over again, and that was them bringing everything back up, bringing civilization back up, and yet again, greed gets in the way, and this man, out of jealousy and anger and greed, he destroys what they built after what possibly could have been like 50, 100 years, 200 years, and now it's all gone yet again. So I really like that because it just shows how evil this man is.
Right. And then what was interesting, we have that, not only that, but it follows the fact that he's evil again, but also the fact that everyone knew each other and how it was interconnected. And one of the things that I really wish that they dived into was the ghoul and his turn. We knew why he turned, but we didn't see it, and we didn't see the fallout behind it because things didn't match up. We do know that his wife and daughter are technically still alive. They're somewhere, but we don't know how that happened and how they separated. So I really wish we could have seen that part. Then the big bad enemy who was supposed to be Moldovier, ended up actually being a hero. Not just the story, but for everyone.
The cultist conspiracy nut.
The cultist conspiracy nut was the hero. And Wigzel, who was the guy who implanted himself with a device that no one knew, but they had to get him to Moldovier, ended up it was a cold fusion so that they can repopulate everything. And I wish that we had the connection of him knowing exactly what to do and meeting Moldovier and knowing what was going on. I kind of felt that they left that completely open. And I would have liked more of that, the connections to be connected.
The relationship between him and her?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like, well, why do you need this? How do you know this woman? How do you know it's going to work? Why did you steal this? Who did you steal it from? Like, we knew where he stole it from, but we didn't get the other parts. Even at the end was like, when did this plan come into play? Did she tell you to steal it? Did he decide to steal it? How long were they working on this? The fact that the fact that he decided that he was going to die and he took the cyanide pill and he told Lucy to cut my head off. All I want is the head. When did you come to the decision that you wanted to die? So there were a little bit of things that I wish that they went fully into, that they really didn't.
It did happen fairly quick. So I guess that was conveniently, it went too fast. So there wasn't enough development with that. I agree.
All right. So then kind of going on really quickly, I know we're skipping around the development of the other characters. I really liked how Maximus, he was a literal nobody, and he came into his own power by having this suit. And he really created a brotherhood with Thaddeus, who ended up being his like lowly server at the time, his squire. And then we had like the squire and him fell out because he revealed who he really was to him. And he was all alone again until he met Lucy, which you can see they were both not trusting each other. But I really liked how his character developed throughout the episodes, where he started really coming into his own and his own authority. And that the friendship between him and Lucy ended up being something that started off as very shaky and understandably not trusting each other to full on trusting each other. So I did like that. Was there any thoughts with their relationship?
With the relationship, yeah, it was nice. They're both naive and both don't really know what they're doing in this world. But it was nice. It was a nice development between the both of them, helping each other out, and I guess kind of being a love interest, which is what they were hinting at. Like there was some weird stuff going on there. Aside from that, I wasn't too crazy about the whole Squire scene that you mentioned, like when he showed himself to Squire. I felt like that was a strange thing for him to do. I don't know if they were just hinting at like his character was seeking more of an acceptance of what he did, so that way he can go back to Brotherhood. I don't know if maybe he was just trying to be accepted by his now friend, or what he saw him as. It was a strange choice for him to like decide to reveal himself to him. Like I wouldn't have done that, because I freaking stole a power suit. Like you're gonna die. The Brotherhood's gonna kill you, and I don't know why you would reveal yourself like that.
Yeah, I understand that. I think there was a level of comfortability that he thought he was gonna have, and that was true. Remember, the Squire asked to be branded by him, so he definitely was like, "Oh, this is a brotherhood. We can trust each other." He said, "I can trust you. We're friends. We're brothers." And he kind of went into that, but didn't realize that I'm your brother until a point. So I'm not going to be around. You sitting around murdering people. I don't know whether he acted like if he was afraid that the Brotherhood would then kill him as well, because he then knew that he killed the knight. So that was B.
That's a good point.
So yeah, with that, and then also, the ghoul again, because everything is a backstory with his development. The present really didn't change. He was the one who seemed to be the knower of everything. He knew everyone's secrets, and that's because he was the connector, I feel, to everyone. Remember, Hank asked for his autograph. He worked for the Vault Tech. So he knew all of the people, essentially. He knew who Mendes-Jones was. So that was that connection there. So I just felt like he was the glue to the story.
Yeah.
And without him, it would kind of almost fall apart. So it was interesting. And also, he never killed Lucy, even though there was plenty of chances to do that. And he could have easily done that. So that showed for me a little bit of a humanity side to him, even though he did use her as bait for that big fish. But it was kind of nice.
It's weird because you could see little hints of it here and there, but what made no sense to me is that he had heard her last name early on into the show, and that's when it clicked for him. Oh, he must be related, and yet he still tried to sell her. So he tried to sell her to that, the robot. They're supposed to harvest the organs and all that stuff. Eventually she gets away and and all that, but why would you sell her? Like, wouldn't you use her as bait? Wouldn't you tell her what's going on so she can bring you to the father as well? It almost just strayed away from like his motivation to try to find his daughter and his wife to just trying to survive. So he decided to just sell her and just be done with it. I guess I'll just do it on my own. I assume that's what his train of thought was.
Did he know they were alive? Because he had to be told, "Hey, your wife and daughter."
I don't know. he asked
Because
them.
that part
He asked them like, where are my wife and daughter, or wife and kid, or something like that. And so he doesn't know where they are. But I don't know if that's also the assumption of if he knows they're actually alive or not. I think he just wants to find them, regardless if they're dead or alive.
And see, also, I viewed the selling of, he sold it to the robot for the organs.
Yeah.
I viewed it, well, he didn't technically sell her. Remember, she stumbled into that place and then discovered the robot. And then the robot enticed her without telling the full story about the organs. Because the robot, Pip Pip, was real nice. Was it Pip Pip?
I can't remember the
Snip,
name of the
Snip.
robot.
It
Snip
was
Snip. Yes.
Snip. 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 It was Snip Snip. So
well, she didn't wander in. She had no choice. She walked in, sure, because she was forced to.
He was about to kill her.
Yeah.
So I think he was a little angry and then tried to kill her. He was like, "Oh, you're the daughter. Oh no, I'm gonna kill you." And then she took off running, and she ended up in that place. And that robot had some very nice manners until you realized what he was trying to actually do. So I kind of liked that. None of the robots really seemed to be nice, because you had that one in the brain. That was just the brain.
Yeah.
And he was like, "I'm gonna kill you. Stay still." And he kept going into the wall. So I view that kind of as, in a way, well, you harvested, you used my body in order to sell your vault. So what's wrong with this girl's body being harvested? In a way. But they did kind of end up meeting. And then he got his vials, which is a ton of vials. That scene was crazy, by the way.
He's got a lifetime supply at this point.
Yeah. And that's when she discovered that not all ghouls are the same. And that they didn't release the other ghouls for a reason. But this is kind of her turning point, when she had to actually, she killed before, but she had to really kill in order to survive. And you saw that even though they were trained in the vault is much different than the real world.
Yeah.
So I really did get to see that kind of turn. And I like that term for her. Very much so. Also, the second plot twist has to do with Vault 31, where we discovered that the people of Voltec, who was like, "Yes, we're going to go start this war, we're going to bomb," it had nothing to do with China, which then I really wish that they would go into deeper. Maybe it's in the video games of how they coordinated that. Was China in agreement? Did China just not know? Because essentially it was America who bombed itself.
No, it wasn't America. It was literally them, like the corporations. The corporations set all up.
Well, right.
It wasn't like the military.
So this also is another thing that I have questions. How do you get access to for nuclear bombs?
I have no idea. I hope that's something they touch on too.
Unless it was like, oh, America, but I was like, but there's so many different corporations. Why would we all kill ourselves for this one corporation?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I was like a little, unless because they were already dealing with manufacturing, and maybe they also dealt with weapons, and that was an undercover thing. They just had the nuclear bombs already there, and they dropped them themselves. Or maybe the president was involved with that. But there were so many questions that I have about that. But we discovered that the Voltec people were able to cryogenically freeze themselves and place themselves into Vault 31. And kind of, some of them were still frozen. I think it was supposed to be for much longer than what it is now. Maybe it was like supposed to be another 100 years, they would still be frozen. And so the point is, so they can repopulate and reestablish the earth. And they would be either the leaders, essentially, and the overseers, which is, so they still remain in power no matter what. It's about control. And we learned all of this through Lucy's brother. Him discovering that, hey, there's something wrong. Why is the corn all dead? Why are people dead? But it's not like they were killed just yesterday. These were people who were killed maybe 100 years ago, a while ago, and then he meets that weird robot with the syringe and just a brain, who was the overseer of 31, which then I have questions with that. How did that dude's brain get in there? What's going on? So it did leave a lot of questions. But essentially, it seemed to be at the end, he decided to kind of chronogenically freeze himself. We're not really sure. He didn't step into anything, but he seemed like he was leaning more towards that side. What did you think about that?
I kind of thought that he was thinking about destroying them all, if not releasing them, to kind of like ask more questions. That was kind of my thing, because there were a lot more of those executives in there frozen. So I'm sure if we were, as the audience watching season 2, I think we would love to hear what the other ones have to say, what their plans were, what their motivations are they happy with what they did, those kinds of things. I really love the brother's character because he was he's still a very small, skinny person, but like because of his physique and everything, like I can understand how he can grow up very cowardly and he just doesn't care about anything. And then all of a sudden you see his character development of being more and more courageous and more invested in the safety of himself and the vault. So he starts to investigate. He goes into this rabbit hole of finding out what happened in 32 and then finds out what happened in 31. And it was just that amazing. I think my favorite part with him was that moment where his friend that was helping him investigate everything, he gets transferred to 32. And the brother asks, he goes, "Are you really going to just leave knowing everything that you know?" And the guy is just like, "Yes, like I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to mess with anything." And he moves off and he leaves to the other vault. And the brother, he just says, "Coward." Like he just calls him a coward. And that was just like, oh, that's a good moment right there. You used to be the coward and now you're not. So now you're the badass.
It seemed to me that he, in a way, regretted that. He wished that he was joining him. Because remember when the doors closed and he kind of just had this pensive look. And so I really think that maybe in season 2, he might change. And he might actually go with it. But what's really interesting was his wife, Steph. Was it Stephanie? His wife.
With the patch?
The blonde, with the and how she got that patch was just that fight scene alone. Was like, oh my God, that's incredible. Yeah. I really thought that she was going to be like the soldier of the vault.
Yeah, I thought so too.
The way how she was fighting and that she, when they had them all lined up and she looked like she was prepared and ready to die. And she had that fork in her eye and she was like, hey, what's this going to be? I was like, she talked to him and she told him, fight, essentially. Something's not right. But then she put on that 1950 smile with the housewife and the newborn baby. And we never heard about that again. So maybe there's a plot twist later on coming up with season 2 and that she is a double mole. But we did find out that she was an overseer from 32. So she knows what's going on. But
she was turned into an overseer. She wasn't always one. Yeah. They just made her one for 32. So I'm sure at some point, yes, she's going to start learning more about what really goes on.
And then that way we might get her back again being what I thought she was going to be when that attack happened and she got that fork in her eye. Yeah. So we don't know. And what was really interesting when you mentioned that they changed or upgraded the different vaults. People who got changed to 32 are considered to be the easygoing. They understand the rules. They follow the rules. They don't ask any questions. They don't walk any boats. And that's because they're easier to control. So everyone who remained in 33, to me, it seemed like, well, we have more work to do with changing who they are and to making them more complacent. And what was really interesting is the vaults itself, if we go back to the experiments that we had, we got to visit Vault 4. Oh, another pizza?
Shouldn't be.
Okay. So we got to visit Vault 4, which was a very weird vault. We thought everybody was born in that vault, but they are very kind of deformed. We meet one guy with literally one eye. He looks like Cyclops. which is going to
Oh
turn
yeah.
into an amazing badass, and X-Men, by the way. So we end up with that, and we see other people. There's a woman with like these aqua blue eyes, and everyone seems to be kind of deformed in their own way. And what's really interesting is the Cyclops guy. He's kind of, you can't say racist, but he's kind of like, what's that word? Well, it's not racial discrimination, but it's just everything else discrimination. He's talking about the immigrants, those people.
It's prejudice.
There you go. He's very prejudiced, which is hilarious to me. But we discovered that, that vault is not what it is at all. And there's some experiments going on in that place as well. Do they touch upon the Vault 4 in the video games?
No, not that I remember. I mean, from the show itself, it was pretty much that they had done experiments way back when in the vault. So now the people that were experimented on took over the vault. So everything is good now, technically, even though it looks shady. But I don't think that was something that was. Again, there are so many vaults and so many stories on them. There could be, I just don't know it, but I don't know of any.
Also, what was really interesting, we saw the change between Lucy and Maximus, who changed his name because, again, he's hiding his identity. A little bit of a liar because he's a 75-year-old man. I'm convinced. But remember, we saw that switch where he was like, I don't trust the vault. This is terrible. And she's like, no, it's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. And then, they're separated because he ends up getting shot with a rotten tooth. By the way, there's no bullets, it's rotten tooth. And they take care of that. And then he discovers like slippers and a hot shower and caviar and TV. And he's just like, I love this here. In a way, you could say it's a way. It reminded me a little bit of Get Out when he was sitting down at the chair and just watching the TV.
Yeah.
As like pure chaos was going on behind him.
Yeah.
So I found that to be interesting. But we started to see Lucy ended up interacting more with the people there. Because remember, he never had caviar and showers and basic the pleasantries of life. And she's more interacting, and she discovers that, hey, these people might be a cult. And it's run by the Mulder lady. I'm butchering her name, but it's ran by this lady, and it's like a blood cult, and they're all naked doing some chants. And that's when we see like that kind of switch where she becomes completely paranoid. And then, it's really weird how they try to punish her because she speaks out against everything.
Which is funny. Which is funny though, because she was wrong. Like it's funny how like they switched those roles and yet they're both wrong because he gets complacent and she gets paranoid. And then when she finds out the truth, then she's okay with it. And then he gets paranoid again because he saw her getting carried out.
Destroy all their nice little properties and they all like good food. I was like, not the food. It's hard to come by. But yeah, that was really interesting and really fun. But you seen that he really had her back. That was that moment of trust.
Yeah.
Because, he jumped in that suit and was like, unhand her. And started throwing around some people. So it was really nice, but hilarious. And kind of speaking about that, how did you feel about the tone of balancing the humor with the seriousness of it all?
I think there was just enough humor to make it fun and lighthearted in the point. I think it did a really good balance. It didn't take itself too seriously. Actually, it didn't take so seriously at all. It took itself really, really light game, as if you're watching a video game. Like, for example, when she got the radiation poisoning, normally somebody who has radiation poisoning, their hair is going to fall out. They start to get sick. They're going to die in a couple of days, if not weeks or whatever. But all you needed to do was stick a needle in her for a couple minutes and she's healed. She's good to go. They did the same thing with the injections. So like in the game, there's these injections, you just stick it in you and then you're healed for a couple points. And that was kind of like a thing that they did, like literally the first thing in the first episode when she gets stabbed with her wedding dress, she sticks a needle in her and all of a sudden she's okay. So it's like, even those little things are funny moments because it didn't take itself seriously. Like it's not supposed to be that realistic. It's not supposed to be that dark. It's supposed to be fun and lighthearted because it has that 1950s aesthetic. I just really appreciate the 1950s aesthetic, and the jokes were well done. Not too many. Like sometimes people like to make too many jokes and it just ruins the whole mood. But it was done well.
Right. So kind of in a way, what do you think about the ending? Because there was a lot of things that was going on at once where Lucy discovered what really happened with her father. And she was along with Maximus, who, he didn't know all of the information, but then he was trying to get Mulder, the woman, as well.
Moldover, yeah.
Moldover. I gave up on her name. I'm sorry. She's a lovely actress. But yeah, so everything kind of came right to head where Hank was revealed as a liar. Moldover was kind of revealed as the savior of everything. They got the core in her possession, and she was able to turn on the power of, would it just be that city? It's not all of America.
No, I doubt it would be the whole United States, but it could power a city. I think that's what they said.
So they got power back to the city. Maximus, because the Brotherhood went and kind of started, they was going to attack Moldover. His name I'm butchering again. They went to attack her, but because of the whole, Hank ended up shooting, how did it go? Hank ended up shooting Moldover, my understanding, because he was just upset. He understandably was just upset about the whole situation. Yeah. But she was already dead. Then Lucy discovered that her mom was still alive. She was turned into a ghoul, but it was just a sad ghoul. It wasn't like, ghoul. It was a sad ghoul. So she decided to put her out of her misery. The Brotherhood thought that Maximus ended up killing Moldover and made him their king, their leader. He also was proposed by the previous leader to, hey, let's basically mutinize this place and start our own brotherhood. If I'm remembering that correctly. And so now he's the dilemma of that. Lucy tried to wake him up because in the midst of everything, he got completely knocked out. She couldn't wake him up, but she decided that she was going to leave with the goal. And they saw everybody had their own separate situations at the end where everyone was kind of separated. Mm-hmm. And she ended up living with Hank, and we saw that they're going into New Vegas.
Yeah.
So what did you think of that final ending?
I think it was well done. I think it sets up perfectly for the next season, which I was hoping they would do. Usually, like, nowadays in this generation, a lot of shows don't last very long. So for the most part, TV shows, they'll give you closure for pretty much everything at the end of the last episode. So that way, just in case the show gets canceled, then you're already, everything's already pretty much resolved. But this one, I feel like that they were confident in what they were doing for the next season. So they set everything up pretty well. I'm happy that the Ghoul and Lucy are going to get another thing together. So that way, hopefully their relationship gets better, I guess. I mean, she is missing a finger because of him. Was missing a finger.
But she got a finger back.
Yeah, was missing a finger. Yeah, but I think isn't he still missing a finger now? Oh no, he sewed his back on too. Yeah, so they both chopped their fingers up, but they got fingers back. Video game logic, wonderful. They just have to sew a finger on and it works. See, I really like the Maximus thing. Like right at the end, he looks like he's gonna be drunk with power, and he's gonna go deeper and deeper into the Brotherhood stuff, and kind of like try to get more into power. My prediction is that he's gonna be a villain at some point. Like maybe not the main villain, but a villain. But like he's gonna be a villain for a while because he's gonna get drunk with power. He's probably even gonna overthrow those people that were taking over the Brotherhood before, that were always giving him shit at some point, and he's gonna go in a lot deeper. That's my prediction with that. And then of course I like the Hank Easter egg at the end. You get to see the little Deathclaw skull Easter egg, and then you see New Vegas right at the end, which a lot of people weren't happy with, fans anyways, because New Vegas takes place the game New Vegas takes place much after Fallout 3 and 4. So people were just like, wait a minute. So the fact that you can see Vegas here does that mean that Vegas always existed for like a long time, which shouldn't be true canonically? But I think, I don't know who cleared this up, but Amazon pretty much cleared it up, and that the entire series takes place after all the games. So that leaves everything out for everything to pretty much exist. Anything that's happened in the game can exist in this world on the show.
So then Fallout 2 and 3 and Vegas and all of them is going to just be there. Okay, that's interesting. So was there anything else that I missed that you wanted to point out in your fuzzy?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I like about it is that it didn't take itself seriously. It was a lot of fun being like a video game TV show. It still gave a good story, still gave good character development, while still like being respectful of the content. So I appreciate all of it. I think one of my favorite Easter eggs, I should say, was they actually what's the wife of Cooper? She says Ward. Sorry, not her actually. Was it her or was it the overseer when she was young? I can't remember which one. But they say war never changes, and that's literally the slogan of the entire series.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I thought it was very well done. And again, if you've never played the game, you can follow it very easily. I thought the characters was amazing. I think the actor who played Cooper, the ghoul, he deserves an Emmy because that was just a fantastic performance that he delivered. And I think one of the standout ones, again, was episode 6 when everything kind of just got revealed. And, when he had to spy on his wife because they call it communism because 1950s. But the communists ended up being right, that something was not right with World-Tech, and you kind of just saw that heartbreak that he had throughout the whole episode, and that he carried on, if you really look at it, throughout the whole season with it. So I just thought it was really well done. Now, because of you played the video games, is there anything that you particularly look forward to that you want to see?
Well, as I mentioned before, I would love to see a Deathclaw in the next season. I would love to see somebody fight one of those. That'll be a lot of fun. I hope they also add in a bunch of the other factions that were involved. There are a lot of other factions, not as important as the ones that were introduced in the first season, but there are some other factions that could make things a bit interesting. And I would also like for them to do more involvement with other vaults, like the ones that are famously people know about, like lore wise and stuff.
What is a vault? You can't technically spoil anything.
No, like for example, one vault. I'm trying to think of one where people actually live, because a lot of them, majority of the population are pretty much dead.
What?
Yeah, like, well, all right. I won't mention any because I can't think of any right now that actually still has a population in them. But for example, like crazy stories in the vaults. One experiment on one of the vaults was as soon as everybody gets into the vaults, doors close, and they're greeted by an AI, and the AI tells them, you have to choose an overseer. So they choose an overseer, and that overseer ends up getting killed, or actually ends up getting like sacrificed or something. And then the actual law turns into they have to give a sacrifice to the AI every year, or every, I think it's every year. And that person who gets sacrificed is voted in as the overseer. So the twist is that no one wants to be an overseer because they know within a year they're going to die. They're going to get sacrificed to the AI. So the catch now, the reason why they're doing this is because every year before the sacrifice happens, the AI says, you can sacrifice this person if you'd like, or you can all die right now. Your choice. So obviously everyone always chooses to sacrifice the overseer, where then it gets down to about 4 or 5 people, I think it is, at the end of like this population, and they all kind of get sick of the sacrifice now that the population is down to like 5 people. So the AI again says, kill this one, sacrifice this one person, or everybody dies. And they all say, no, we're not going to sacrifice anymore. And then the AI says, good for you. That's what I wanted the whole time. You guys can go.
That goes back to the Easter egg when they was deciding who was the overseers. They said the one can be an AI.
Yeah. So this whole time they could have said no, and no one would have died. It was all a test.
That's horrific. That's stupidity. That's them failing on the test for year after years after years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and there's more crazier ones. There's more crazy. Like some of them are sick and twisted, demented. Some of them are like very like they really make you think. Like, but it's fun. You should look into like just reading or watching a video with like all the lore on the bolts.
That's hilarious. I'm gonna do that because now I'm intrigued. So this was like the more of the boring vault stories.
That
they showed
compared to other ones, yeah.
How about the twisted ones? Maybe we'll get that in another season. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's fascinating. Well, overall for me, a great show, as you stated as well. I look forward to season 2. They were renewed. We do not know when that is coming out, but it's going to be amazing and great, as always, I'm pretty sure. So is there any final things that you wanted to say, anything you wanted to plug?
Just more Koalition. Check out the gaming website, check out the YouTube. I do majority of my work with you guys is gaming reviews I'm working on right now. I can't say it because it's no rest for the wicked. It's already out right now on early access, so people can get it themselves if they like to, but I'm right now doing a review for that.
Okay, and for me, as always, check out the Koalition.com, the YouTube page, which we have a bunch of interviews. We have interviews just now I did with the whole team of Fallout. We also have the Challengers with Zendaya. We have the Idea View with Anne Hathaway. And we have some other ones. A very interesting one is going to be the director of Netflix Good Times. And she explains what really happened with the creation of that show and her actual intent of the show. So that is coming very soon. And you guys should really read that. I can't post video or audio, so it's going to be a written conversation that I end up having with her. So once again, I am Dana, your host, and this is Danny, not Ramirez, but Martinez. And thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.